With your permission, I'll make a statement about the NATO, G7 and Commonwealth summits held in Madrid, Schloss Elmau and Kigali, respectively. In the space of 7 days, I had the opportunity to work alongside more than 80 governments, nearly half the entire membership of the United Nations, and hold bilateral talks with over 25 leaders, ranging from the new presidents of South Korea and Zambia to the prime ministers of Japan and Jamaica, demonstrating the global reach of Britain's diplomacy and the value of our presence at the world's top tables. Our immediate priority is to join with our allies to ensure that Ukraine prevails in her brave struggle against Putin's aggression. At the Madrid summit, NATO exceeded all expectations in the unity and single-minded resolve of the alliance to support Ukraine for as long as it takes and to explode the myth that Western democracies lack the staying power for a prolonged crisis. All of us understand that if Putin is not stopped in Ukraine, he will find new targets for his revanchist attacks, and we are not defending some abstract ideal, but the first principle of a peaceful world, which is that large and powerful countries cannot be allowed to dismember their neighbours. And if this was ever permitted, then no nation anywhere would be safe. Therefore, our goal must be for our Ukrainian friends to win, by which I mean that Ukraine must have the strength to finish this war on the terms that President Zelensky has described. And when Putin claimed that by invading his neighbour he would force NATO away from Russia, he could not have been proved more spectacularly wrong, because the single most welcome outcome of the Madrid summit was the alliance's agreement to admit Finland and Sweden. And I hope I speak for the whole House when I say that Britain will be proud to stand alongside these fellow democracies and reaffirm our unshakable pledge to come to their aid and defend them if ever necessary, just as they would for us. We were glad to smooth their path into NATO by giving both nations the security assurances they needed to apply for membership. And when I met Prime Minister Andersson of Sweden and President Niinistö of Finland last Wednesday, I told them I was certain that NATO would be stronger and safer for their accession. Before Putin's onslaught, both countries had prized their neutrality even through all the crises of the Cold War. And it's a measure of how seriously they take today's threat that opinion in Sweden and Finland has been transformed. And it speaks volumes about Putin's folly that one permanent consequence of his attack on Ukraine will be a doubling of the length of NATO's border with Russia. If anyone needed proof that NATO is purely defensive, the fact that two quintessentially peaceable countries should have chosen to join demonstrates the true nature of our alliance. And now is the time to intensify our help for Ukraine, because Putin's Donbass offensive is slowing down and his overstretched army is suffering heavy casualties. And Ukraine's success in forcing the Russians off Snake Island by sheer weight of firepower shows how difficult the invader will find it to hold the territory he has overrun. We need to equip our friends now to take advantage of the moment when Putin will have to pause and regroup. So NATO will supply Ukraine with another £1 billion of military aid, including air defences, drones and electronic warfare equipment, bringing our total military, humanitarian and economic support since the 24th of February to nearly £4 billion. And to guarantee the security of our allies on the eastern flank, NATO agreed in Madrid to bolster its high readiness forces, and we in the UK will offer even more British forces to the alliance, including almost all of our surface fleet. We have already doubled our deployment in Estonia, and we will upgrade our national headquarters to be led by a brigadier and help our Estonian friends to establish their own divisional headquarters. If you follow the trajectory of our programmes to modernise our armed forces, Mr. Speaker, you will draw the logical conclusion that the UK will likely be spending 2.5% of GDP on defence by the end of this decade. Earlier, at the G7 summit, the first full day of talks coincided with a Russian missile destroying a Ukrainian shopping centre, killing at least 18 people. This barbaric attack on an obviously civilian target strengthened the resolve of my fellow leaders to provide Ukraine with more financial, humanitarian, military and diplomatic backing for, and I quote the communiqué again, as long as it takes. Exactly the terms later echoed by NATO. The G7 has pledged nearly $30 billion of financial support for Ukraine this year, and we will tighten our sanctions on Russia, and the UK will join America, Japan and Canada to ban the import of Russian gold, which previously raised more export revenues than anything else except hydrocarbons. The G7 will devise more options for ensuring that nearly 25 million tonnes of grain trapped inside Ukraine by Putin's blockade reaches the countries that rely on these supplies. Just as the world economy was recovering from the pandemic, Putin's war has caused a surge in global food and energy prices, raising the cost of living everywhere, including here at home. The G7 agreed, and I quote, to take immediate action to secure energy supply and reduce price surges, including by exploring additional measures such as price caps. And we will help our partners in the developing world to meet their climate targets and transform millions of lives by constructing new infrastructure according to the highest standards of transparency and environmental protection. Through our Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, an idea launched by the UK at the Cardiff Space Summit last year, we will mobilise up to $600 billion of public and private investment over the next 5 years. Many beneficiary nations will be members of the Commonwealth, and I was very pleased to attend the summit in Kigali of this unique association of 56 states encompassing a third of humanity. More countries are eager to join, and we were pleased to welcome 2 new members in Gabon and Togo. It's an amazing fact that our familiar legal and administrative systems, combined with the English language, knock 21% off the cost of trade between Commonwealth members. And it's because the Commonwealth unites that advantage with some of the fastest growing markets in the world that we're using the sovereignty that the UK has regained to sign free trade or economic partnership agreements with as many Commonwealth countries as possible. So far, we've done 33, including Australia and New Zealand, and we're aiming for India by Diwali in October. But it's true, Mr. Speaker, that not every member of the Commonwealth sees Putin's aggression as we do, or exactly as we do. And it was vital to have the opportunity to counter the myths and to point out that food prices are rising because Putin has blockaded one of the world's biggest food producers. And if large countries are free to destroy their neighbours, then no Commonwealth member, however distant from Ukraine, would be genuinely secure. The fact that in a week the UK was able to deal on friendly terms with scores of countries in 3 organisations shows the extraordinary diplomatic assets our country possesses. And as we stand up for what is right in Ukraine and advance the values and interests of the British people, I commend this statement to the House.